Hi everyone. Sorry I'm a bit late. How's everyone doing? Feel free to start asking questions. And again, I will be covering some insights I've been coming across about EB-1A profile building. I'm getting a lot of questions about the authorship criterion. And something I clarified recently is that you don't want to be looking at publications that look like Harvard. There seems to be a bias against these kinds of publications, even if they look or are professional publications, they could still get questioned. It seems like USCIS doesn't like publications that look like platforms for blog articles and instead prefer publications that are more like journals and research publications. So if you want to present a strong authorship criterion, you probably want to look at, well, the strongest form of authorship would probably be journal articles, but given how much time they can take to apply and the costs associated with publishing in a top journal, for a lot of industry professionals, you don't really have to do this sort of thing. You can just look at publishing in technical publications. Those kinds of articles are also great for authorship. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then one tier below that would be articles in professional publications, but then again, they could get questioned simply because some of these platforms do look like platforms for blog articles. A couple of other things that have come up about authorship is that I think one question I keep getting is, can I use something that I published as part of my studies or my master's degree or sometimes PhD to meet the authorship criterion? For a master's degree program, probably not. If you look at the authorship criterion, there is a requirement that the published material be in a professional publication or a trade publication. And if your master's thesis was just submitted to a professor for review and was not really published anywhere, it's most likely not going to count as authorship evidence. But if you're a PhD student and you published in a journal or you presented at a conference and then it got published in a journal, as in your presentation, then that could count towards authorship because then it would that could count towards authorship because it could then meet the second part of the authorship criterion if you look at the policy manual. So yeah, those are just a couple of things about authorship that have come up. And feel free to start asking questions in the comments. Since there are no questions right now, in the meantime, I can just go through some of the profile building resources that I said I was going to talk about. So here are the resources. So as some of you know, I currently run a paid newsletter for $12 per month where you get access to my newsletter resources. One of those resources is a profile building opportunities database where I have listed, I think, over 400 opportunities at this point for different fields. So mostly for software engineering. I have a bunch for cloud computing, product management, data science is a big one too, AI, automotive, semiconductors. So these are just some of the fields that I'm covering in my database so far. And these are just opportunities to give you a sense of how you can get started with profile building and what kinds of organizations you can join, what kinds of judging opportunities to look into, what kinds of authorship opportunities to look into. So yeah, that's what you can get from the profile building opportunities database that I've set up within my newsletter resources. I've also reviewed some AAO decisions, and I will continue to do this occasionally. And these are just decisions that go into USCIS's reasoning for initially denying an EB-1A petition or EB-2NW petition or O1 petition. And from them, I just draw profile building insights that you can look into to better understand how USCIS thinks about EB-1A, EB-2NIW, and O1. And then I also have a bunch of video resources. These are just recorded conversations with EB-1A recipients, asking some of the questions that I get all the time, like how to put together strong reference letters, how to claim leading or critical role, how to claim original contributions. These are just some of the questions that I get all the time that I've been able to ask some EB-1A recipients. And something else you will get access to as part of my newsletter is you will get access to my private group, which is where a lot of people have been able to find opportunities to work with each other on papers, on technical publications. A lot of people are also sharing opportunities actively because they are involved in, say, the leadership of some top organizations in their field. And as a result, they're coming across a lot of speaking opportunities, a lot of judging opportunities, and they're just actively sharing them within the group. I've also been doing a lot of outreach to find organizers of hackathons and other kinds of events and conferences to see if we can involve some of my newsletter readers with these opportunities. So I'm personally doing a lot of outreach as well to help a lot of you land opportunities. So those are my newsletter resources. Feel free to start asking questions. Also, and I keep covering this, but I can't really overstate the importance of outreach. Hi, Tej. Hey, you're welcome. Does company press, e.g. in Forbes, with my comment on it, count? Probably not, because it depends on how you sourced the press coverage. If it was sourced through your company, it could count towards leading a critical role. It would really depend on the nature of the article. It would have to be media coverage around your specific work and not just something that you did for your company. You would also probably have to mention your name and your work as well. It's just something to keep in mind. That being said, even if an article about you and your work is not, if you're not able to use that article for media coverage, you can still use it for a leading or critical role. That is something that you can try to claim. Or if you are thinking about original contributions, perhaps that article could help as well. Yeah, it really depends on the nature of that article. Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else have questions? But yeah, going back to outreach, I keep going on about outreach, but it is the way to land lots of profile building opportunities. And I say this because that is what I'm doing for my newsletter as well. I'm doing a lot of outreach. I'm reaching out to a lot of hackathon organizers, and just having one conversation with the right person can help you get access to so many opportunities and actually get noticed for these opportunities. And that is the difference you want to be making in your profile building. You want to get noticed for these opportunities. You want to be seen as the right candidate for these opportunities. And you simply can't do enough of that, or at least advocate for yourself enough, simply by submitting an application. I mean, you could, but conversations are just always more powerful. Rafin asks, hi Jason, what criteria does the mentorship fall under? Mentorship doesn't really fall under any criteria. I suppose you could try to claim it under a leading or critical role, but chances are it is not going to count towards any of the criteria. Depends on the kind of mentorship. I mean, if you're mentoring senior executives, you're helping, I don't know, like mentor the next CEO of your company, then perhaps that could fall under a leading or critical role. But outside of that, most mentorship is probably not going to count towards any criteria. That being said, mentorship can still be a way to meet more people, land more profile building opportunities, but mostly meet more people, which is always a great way to land more profile building opportunities. Does company raising a funding round and me showing contribution to it add as critical role? Depends on how significant your contribution was to this new funding round. So if you, I don't know, like if you're the CTO of your company and you help raise the next funding round, then yes, that would be quite significant and could be evidence for leading a critical role. If you were just one out of hundreds of people who were a part of the company that created the project that then led to that new funding round, then perhaps that would be more of a tenuous argument. It just really depends on how significant your contribution was to the raising of that new funding round. Nitesh asks, hackathons, innovation challenge awards and organization and judging panel for hackathon and organization does count for judging? No, because it is considered work within your company. You want to show impact on your field through activities outside of your company that are activities and organized within your field by organizations outside of your company. How to get access to the resources for EB-1A or EB-2NIW? You can get access through a link I will be sharing after this live stream, or you can just look at the link on my profile, which is under the view my newsletter button. You'll see that if you navigate to my profile. Archer, thank you. You're welcome. Anyone else have questions? Another thing that I've been seeing a lot of people, I've been seeing a lot more people work towards membership, which is a step that you probably want to take if you want to land more judging and authorship opportunities. It's simply more straightforward to land judging and authorship opportunities if you get involved in professional organizations that are hosting conferences, that are peer reviewing for journals, that are the ones publishing articles within these journals. You'll oftentimes see a lot of professional publications hosted by organizations within a field. So that is why you might want to work towards the membership criterion. And the more senior of a member you are within the organization, say you're a part of a committee, say you are a part of some sort of regional leadership team, then that's just another way to not only land judging opportunities, because you could be reviewing, say, the committee applications for that committee, but also just get considered by more senior professionals within your field for upcoming opportunities, say perhaps working on a paper, working on some sort of technical publication article. You could get considered for those opportunities simply by being in senior positions within a professional organization. Do you have any recommendations on lawyers that can help us evaluate our current status and kind of work with me one-on-one on this? Sure, feel free to message me and I will share some recommendations. How long does it take to do profile building? There is no set time that it takes because different people are in different positions. Generally speaking, I would say if you have a strong leading or critical role claim or original contributions claim or both, which would be a strong anchor criterion, and you're able to meet maybe one or two other criteria, profile building will probably just take 3 to 6 months, possibly even longer. If you don't have an anchor criterion, as in you can't really show a strong leading or critical role or original contributions claim or both, profile building is probably going to take a lot longer than 6 months, probably at least 1 to 2 years, possibly even longer. Depends on how strong of an anchor criterion you currently have. And if you know you don't have an anchor criterion and you have not worked towards any of the criteria, then I would say you would be looking at a 3 to 5 to even 6 year timeline or even longer. How many criteria do you think is too little, too many, safe? I think what's safe is going to be a strong anchor criterion. You want to be able to present a strong leading or critical role or original contributions claim. And then after that, it's just about meeting at least 3 criteria, so you probably want to present 4 or 5 if possible. That's generally the number of criteria you want to be targeting so that you have enough leeway so that if 1 or 2 gets denied, you still are able to meet that 3 criteria threshold. But it also depends on how strong of an anchor criterion you have. If you don't have a strong anchor criterion, it won't really matter how many criteria you try to meet. You could meet 5, 6, 7 of them and still not be able to pass final merits because you don't have a strong anchor criterion. You don't have a strong claim for how you have risen to the top of your field, in other words. Andan Daganesh asks, if I have a mix of mid-tier journal publications, professional magazine, IEEE conference proceedings, D-Zone articles, 50K reads are good. Should I have to remove D-Zone articles? From what I've heard, D-Zone articles aren't flagged as fraudulent or anything. So I don't think removing them or including them is really going to hurt. If you're an industry professional with just a mix of these journal publications, a professional magazine publications, conference proceedings, it sounds like you have a decent authorship claim. I would try to then focus on either judging or membership or just strengthening your anchor criterion. Sounds like if you really wanted to strengthen authorship, you would probably want to go for more technical publications or more journal publications. So the magazines you mentioned, try to avoid more D-Zone articles. I don't think they're really going to make that much of a difference from what I've heard. They are not considered strong authorship evidence. You're welcome. Anyone else have questions? Any other questions? Yeah, generally speaking, profile building just takes a lot of outreach and a lot of applications done over a prolonged, extended, sufficient period of time. You're probably not going to land all the opportunities you need simply by doing outreach and applying for 2 weeks or even 2 months. The highest quality opportunities can take months or even over a year to land. But what you'll notice if you start landing these kinds of opportunities is that you'll start getting referred to even more of these opportunities. So that is something you don't really know until you start getting those referrals. It's like you don't really know just how many profile building opportunities you could potentially get simply by keeping up with outreach and applications. And that's why it's about doing it over a long enough period of time, doing enough outreach and doing enough applications over a long enough period of time. That's just something to keep in mind. How do we know if we have met the criteria and have a strong application? Strong application is really based on your leading or critical role claim or original contributions claim or both. If you have that and you're able to meet 2 criteria, you potentially already have a strong application. There's really no threshold for each criterion. You can say meet judging simply by judging 1 hackathon involving industry professionals. I would say having 2 to 3 activities per criterion you want to meet outside of the anchor criteria. That is what you want to be aiming for, so that if one of those activities gets questioned, or even 2, and then you still have a third one to rely on, 2 to 3 high quality opportunities, I would say, per criterion is what you want to be aiming for to be able to present, potentially present a strong claim for that criterion. Again, it really depends on the quality of the opportunity that you have, quality of the opportunities you have looked into. Anyone else have questions? All right, if there are no other questions, thanks everyone for joining today's live stream.